Hi, I'm Selena from the MCA's 2020 Youth Committee, and welcome to GENEXT Goes Online. I hope you guys have been staying safe and have been doing well recently in these really strange, really unprecedented times. I'd just first like to start by acknowledging that I'm in Derek country this evening, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Tonight, I'm going to be talking with Emily McTaggart, who will be joining us through the Biennale of Sydney later. She's the Digital Content Manager at the Biennale of Sydney, and we'll be having a conversation about how she's been involved with the art world up until now. Hold on. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Selena. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm not sure if you or the audience has really seen our GenX manifesto. There's a link in our bio if anyone's curious as to what it is, but as a youth committee, we always want GenX to be a place where young creatives can be exposed to opportunities and learn about the art world. Which is why I'm so excited to talk to you this evening and find out more about your experiences. Also, you guys, the audience can always drop in questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them to the end. So I'll just start with my first question, so we sort of get an understanding of your background in art. Do you remember when you first became interested in art?
That's such a big question. Well, I think I've always been interested in art. When I was really little, I enjoyed painting and drawing and doing lots of creative little activities. But I think my interest in art definitely got serious when I was in high school. So I grew up in regional New South Wales in a small country town called Canowindra. And there, most students in New South Wales, I studied visual arts in year 7, and I really got interested. And then I was really lucky to have an amazing art teacher who mentored me for 6 years through high school. And I guess it was through those 6 years that I really became very interested in art. I experimented with lots of different art forms. I read lots of books, and I grew up in regional New South Wales, so sometimes I would catch the bus and train to Sydney and see all the blockbuster exhibitions at MCA and the art gallery, see all the biennales, and yeah, I just decided that art was this thing that I was really interested in, and I thought, why not keep learning about it? So then I decided to enroll at the University of New South Wales, and yeah, studied art.
That sounds like me right now, just going to art museums. Can you tell me how this initial infatuation with art came into your first job in the arts?
Well, when I was studying, I started looking at opportunities and ways that I could find more about working in the arts, and seeing different opportunities that I could find that were maybe a little bit more hands-on in the industry. So I studied a Bachelor of Art Theory. So it was very obviously very theory-based, very philosophical, and I wanted a little bit more hands-on experience. So I started seeking out opportunities to volunteer and to do internships. And so I did a really long volunteering stint at my local arts centre in Blacktown. So I volunteered there for many years, and I did internships as well. And I guess it was through that real drive to want to work in the arts and continue learning more about the industry, and getting involved, that I guess I was really lucky. So after many years of volunteering, I ended up doing a little bit of work there as well. And yeah, I guess maybe that's how I got into it.
So my next question is, can you tell me and the audience a bit about your role as the digital content manager at the Biennale?
So my role as digital content manager involves quite a lot, but I guess essentially my main role is about ensuring that the stories that we tell about different projects and the stories that artists want to tell, that we share them online in a way that, you know, audiences can engage and connect with. So I guess a lot of my job really boils down to, you know, writing Facebook statuses, like tweeting, doing Instagram posts, and doing all that kind of stuff. But I guess behind the scenes, there's so much that goes into that. So it's, you know, less, it's not just like a quick, that kind of those quick tasks. There's this, you know, really long kind of build up to, you know, become familiar with the projects and produce content and create content and work collaboratively across teams, work with artists, work with different organizations, connected with the Biennale to really kind of, yeah, create and share interesting content. And I work with amazing photographers and videographers as well to produce material that we can share with the wider world. So I think in many ways it's a really important role, because, you know, where the Biennale is a global arts organization, and especially now so many global audiences may not be able to connect with the works. And so, you know, my role is really, you know, about being able to share those stories in dynamic digital spaces.
Right, and I think that ties into our next question, because I feel like majority of people, when they think of art careers, it's normally like artists and artist curators. So what are some misconceptions about your role?
I think maybe I may have touched on that a little bit. I think one of the biggest misconceptions maybe about digital content management is that it's, you know, it's just about writing on social media and that's like a little quick kind of job and then you kind of move on.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess, you know, obviously that is a big part of what I do. But I guess maybe the misconception is the amount of work that goes into creating that digital content. And so the act of kind of sharing content is quite relatively quick, but I guess there's so much work that goes into producing and editing and creating and cross-checking and planning and managing. And like I said before, I guess, you know, it's really important to ensure that we're telling really engaging stories that are, you know, respectful to works and to the artist's kind of motivations and ideas and all that.
Yeah, speaking of your role of sort of translating an artist's inspirations and all these ideas into the digital world, how has COVID-19 and the closure of the Biennale of Sydney changed your job? I'm sure that's a really like heavy question, but yeah.
I've been thinking about this a little bit lately, and I think maybe, you know, in so many ways my role hasn't actually changed all that much. So my kind of tasks haven't really changed all that much, but I think it's certainly ramped up. So, you know, we announced the temporary closure of the Biennale only 10 days after we opened to the public. And so I guess kind of the initial reaction was maybe a little bit of, you know, disappointment, you know, thinking that we'd worked so hard for 2 years to produce this amazing show. We worked with 101, you know, artists and collectives from all over the world, and we'd all put so much work into this. So, you know, what does it mean for us to have to close to the public only 10 days in? And so I guess, you know, there was this real urge to think creatively, and we all kind of had to step up. So I guess maybe my role was not so much, you know, it became less about it all having like the role of digital content just kind of sitting with a digital content manager, because in so many ways, like our entire team had to adapt, our programs team had to adapt to exhibitions. We all had to think in many ways like digital content managers. So I guess kind of my role shifted in the sense that maybe I became a little, I'd like to hope that I tried to kind of support the team and to kind of, for us to deliver a digital program, which has been really massive. So yeah, I don't think my role has shifted so much. Like I say, it's been crazy busy, wild. You know, we've been programming digital content every single day, and so it's definitely a big part of my role is ensuring that, you know, that content is all, you know, correct and ready to go, and that audiences can engage with the content in a way that's, you know, appropriate for different platforms, for different audiences, for different projects. So yeah, I hope that maybe answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, the youth committee, we had the opportunity to see the Biennale before it was open, but I couldn't go because, yeah, my parents were a bit concerned. But your role has like really helped us, so I can actually finally experience it like I would have been able to.
And we reopen tomorrow. Well, some venues are reopening tomorrow, so that's exciting.
Yeah. My next question is, what are some risks that you've taken in your career and what did you learn? So risks can be interpreted in different ways, like a creative risk, whether you wanted to try something new, or a risk as in taking the art careers itself, because I feel like the art careers have some sort of stigma around them. So what risks have you taken during your career?
Yeah, I think maybe to answer that second part of your question in terms of entering the arts as an industry, I don't think I actually put too much thought into it. I think I was so caught up in like, oh, I love art so much, I'm just going to go and study it, and then I'll figure something out. So, but then I also did a dual degree, so I also studied media. So I thought, well, maybe if, you know, the art world doesn't work out for me, I can find something in, you know, another kind of industry in a similar kind of media related field. So, and I mean that worked out quite well, which is nice. And I feel very lucky. But I guess in terms of risks, I think, you know, I think maybe taking on this role at the Biennale felt risky. And I guess maybe that idea of risk, sometimes it's not necessarily a bold risk, but perhaps maybe we kind of perceive it as that. And we may be approaching an opportunity with a little bit of hesitation and kind of fear and excitement. So taking this role at the Biennale felt risky in the sense that, you know, the Biennale is an organization that I've always admired, that I've always experienced, and that is really massive. And this role was very big. So, I mean, it felt risky in that sense. Also, it was the first time that the Biennale had hired a digital content manager. So I wasn't really sure what was kind of involved and how the role was going to manifest. And I think the Biennale maybe wasn't really sure on what that role was going to involve. So there was quite a lot of uncertainty. And there were certainly things that, you know, elements of the job that I wasn't particularly like experienced in, like web development, that kind of stuff. And I knew I had to kind of oversee some of those things. So I think, you know, that was kind of a risk in itself. And I guess, like I mentioned, there were some, you know, some skills that I've had to develop along the way. And I've certainly taken risks in the sense that sometimes I, you know, put my hand up to do a project and I'm like, yeah, I can do that. That's fine. And yeah, sure, like I'll take that on. And sometimes that's a little bit risky in the sense that, you know, maybe sometimes I do have to kind of like, it's good to, you know, step back and breathe. And, you know, it's important as well to take risks, but when you're doing it, it's also so fine and important to ask for help and put your hand up. And I think the good thing about asking for help is that, you know, people are often really so willing to share their knowledge and their experience and their skills. And so when you take a risk, you know, you can have people with you and you can ask for help. And I think you can learn so many things along the way. So maybe a risk sometimes it's just, maybe it's a bit optimistic, but like, yeah, maybe it's just an opportunity that we're a little bit nervous to jump into.
Yeah, okay. My next question is, what's one project that you're really proud of?
I think this is a little bit general, but I'm really proud of the work that our team at the Biennale has created over the last 2 months or so since we closed. I'm proud of how quickly our team had to adapt and how well I think we did it. We definitely worked well as a team to kind of, you know, support each other to think really, really quickly about what it means to share a Biennale online and to share this particular Biennale as well. And so I'm really proud of the way that everybody kind of jumped in, supported each other, developed brand new skills, and connected with so many audiences all over the world. So I think, you know, I think it's maybe a little bit broad to speak about such a big project that involves little projects. But I think generally it's something that, yeah, that I think we're proud of. That and as well, like I say, we worked so collaboratively, and it was a really supportive kind of experience that I think we're all kind of proud of. And now, you know, like I mentioned, so the Biennale is opening to the public in across 3 venues from tomorrow. So it almost feels like we're coming to the end of this particular digital iteration of the Biennale. So we're all kind of feeling that pride, I think.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's very thankful and proud of you guys for making art so accessible to everyone. My last question is, why do you think it's so important for people, maybe young people in this case, to stay connected to art during these times?
I think it's important to stay connected to art during these times for the same reasons that it's important to stay connected to art times outside of these. I think, you know, art is a space where we can learn so much about the world around us. And I think, you know, through art we can gain unique perspectives from different, you know, individuals and communities that I think is really valuable. So I think it's so important to stay connected to artists and artworks and art at all times. And I think I'd like to think now, you know, there are so many opportunities to engage with art, and I'd really like to think that for as long as, hopefully, for as long as we're engaging with it and continuing to engage with it, that we can continue to support artists, that we can continue to support their projects, and, you know, continue to support the arts industry, so we can, you know, have something to continue to engage with physically after this period's passed.
Right. Speaking of digitally engaging with art, everyone has to go back to GENEXT Goes Online now. This interview has come to an end. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining me today in this interview. Thank you so much for your time here. We all appreciate you taking part in our very first GENEXT Goes Online.
You've done amazing. Thank you.
For everyone else, please make sure that you guys check out the next part of GENEXT Goes Online. We'll see you guys at the Mental Health Panel Talk at 8 o'clock. Have a good night. Thank you again, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.